Okay, this is a tour of the finalized version of my ZAP. I've made many important changes, including this instrument panel here, the ferocious guard dog on duty, and notice these springs here in between the bed and the cab. Those have an important function. This bed is so hard to lift up that I've sprained my back doing it. So I put a counterbalancing system on with these springs. So now I can lift it up with one hand with minimal effort. Also, the springs slow it down from retracting back too far. And if it does go back too far, we have these ropes here that stop it from going anymore. So these springs are balanced to leave just about maybe 10 or 20 pounds of lifting force required to lift the bed up. Before, it felt like it was 100 pounds or even more. It was a lot. Okay, so how does this spring arrangement work? It's not quite so easy to see the way it is here with the bed closed. So let me open it up partially. Okay, I've opened it and I've propped it up with this stick. And down at the bottom, there's a bracket here that was for a crossbar that kept access from the top of the batteries. I took that bar off because with that bar on there, you can't get to those terminals to tighten the lugs down periodically. So I took that off. So the tie-down point on the chassis for that bracket makes a perfect point to put this eye bolt. And to that I attached this spring. That spring comes straight up, and here I've bolted a pulley onto the back of the cab. So first there's a spring. It's under tension on this rope. It comes through the pulley, and then the rope comes down, and I put another eye bolt here at the bottom of the bed. And here you can see the inside where it's screwed on. So the spring pulls down through the pulley, and that pulls the bed up. So that assists me in lifting the bed. Now, as I lift the bed, the spring collapses to the point where it's no longer applying assistance to help lift the bed, but now the bed's at an angle. And because it's at an angle, the factory gas springs take over because now they're at an advantageous angle in order to apply an upward thrust. When the bed is in the fully closed position, the springs aren't at enough of an angle to really help you lift the bed, so it's really all your own work that has to do that. Now, here's the balancing point of the bed, right about like that. So the bed is perfectly balanced with its own weight and the factory gas springs. As I go past that, now the springs are pushing the bed back even more. So the bed is being pushed back by the springs, the gas springs, but also the weight is pulling it back too. And in this case with the solar panel, there's even more weight. So that means it used to be hard to close the bed also. So it was difficult to open it, and then it was difficult to close it again. But look how the spring arrangement works. Once I go past the neutral point, where the factory gas springs actually work against me, now my counterbalance springs actually counter the effect of the gas springs. So that means it's easy to close the bed now. These springs are doing most of the work, as you can see here. So I can do it essentially with one hand now. Before, you used to have to stand on the tire and then pull back. So these counterbalancing springs are really advised if you have one of these little trucks, if you want to avoid back injuries. So see, it's easy to close now. So now it's at the balance point, and here now I'd have to carefully guide it down the rest of the way because it's trying to fall on its own weight. But in this case, my springs are slowing it down, and with just one hand I can control the position of the bed. So for creature comforts, I've done two things to the car. One of them is a section of rubber hose that I sliced and then I put on top of the window because the window doesn't roll down all the way. This way when I drive I can put my arm on something that's soft instead of the sharp edge of the window, so it makes it more comfortable to drive. Secondly, you might be able to hear a fan running right now, and that fan's coming from this little box right here. This is a box that has a TEC in it and water that circulates through the seat cushion. So there's a network of water hoses running through the bottom of the seat cushion and then also throughout the back of the seat cushion. There's a switch on this box that allows me to send cold water to the seat, or I can flip it and then it runs hot water to the seat. So I can have a refrigerated seat or I can have a heated seat depending on the conditions. Instrumentation, the main amp meter, the pack tracker showing bar graph displays for the individual battery voltages, state of charge, a sort of a fuel meter. This is a cycle analyst. It monitors the main pack voltage, amperage, keeps track of amp hours and kilowatt hours, it keeps track of watt hours, regenerative percentage. In this case, this car doesn't have regenerative, but it'll keep track of the battery charger. Amperage minimum, amperage maximum. This is a meter for the solar panel. Right now I'm in the shade, so it's 0. It's a 0 to 2 amp meter, and that's the AC amp meter that monitors the battery chargers. R for reverse. So I positioned the amp meter so I can view it without having to take my eyes off the road. The rest of the instrumentation, I can look at it, but I have to take my eyes off the road to do so. But none of it is required for driving. It's all just for characterization and keeping track of parameters. So I can look at these instruments when I come to a light, for example. But the amp meter, the main amp meter, is important for metering the amount that I press the throttle so I don't overload the system. So here we go, we're accelerating. I try to keep it below 200 amps. If I give it the throttle more travel, I can hit 350 amps, but that's pretty hard on all the wiring, and it's hard on the batteries themselves. So I try to limit the force that I apply to the system. With the 84 volt system, I have plenty of acceleration in town, all the way up to 40 miles an hour. So here we are, almost at 40, 39, there we go, 40 miles an hour, verified by GPS, and also by the ZAP speedometer, which I had to correct. It used to read 15% fast, and I recalibrated it, so now it reads precisely on target. Notice the pack tracker, when I accelerate, you can see the bar graphs go down. So that indicates we're placing a load on the system, pulling the voltages a little bit low. .91 volts for the main pack voltage. That includes the 7th battery. The pack tracker is only hooked up across the 72 volt system, so it's showing 78.3 volts. And here the pack tracker is only showing the 6 batteries comprising the 72 volt system. Okay, I'll give it some acceleration, and notice the voltages all go down a little bit. Showing number 4 battery is the weakest of the pack. And so there we are. That's typical of driving with the new instrumentation and the performance boost by having the 7th battery.